Thank you for being here. This is Simone from the Green Committee and Orange County Association of Realtors. We thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I am really excited about presenting this webinar for you guys because I think it's there's a lot of confusions and misconceptions about what's going on with the state of recycling. And we have Sir George Hernandez here from the OC Waste, Orange County Waste and Recycling, to talk to us about the various things that's going on within the county. This is kind of a high-level overview for you guys. We're going to touch on different topics, and anybody that would like a more deeper dive, to want to know more, Mr. Hernandez has made himself available to be contacted. So George comes to us with over 25 years of experience in the waste and recycling industry, managing multiple post-collection and collection facilities, such as transfer stations, compost facilities, and material recovery facilities, known as MRFs, along with demo construction facilities in Los Angeles, Orange, and Riverside counties. He is a process improvement and material recovery specialist, also certified as manager of landfill operations from Solid Waste Association of North America. He has multiple certifications from OSHA, multiple certifications for multiple facilities from OSHA, Golden Gate, Sharp, and Cal OSHA VPP. And he is currently serving as the Deputy Director for Landfill Operations at the Olinda Alpha Landfill in the city of Brea. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the stage on to George Hernandez. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Simone. Appreciate the welcome and good introductory. So let's begin by saying, hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here this morning. Today, I will be providing information on residential recycling, the do's, the don'ts, cradle to grave, which is the process from when recyclables are collected to final product, and other related topics to better help understand as to how to properly manage our recyclables. In addition, before we go ahead and start, I'd like to provide everyone with OCWR's vision and mission statements. And Orange County Waste and Recycling's vision is to establish a landfill and resource recovery system that safely manages waste, recycles resources, and protects the environment for Orange County residents and businesses, as well as our mission to provide waste management services, protect the environment, and promote recycling in order to ensure a safe and healthy community for current and future generations. Here's a little information in regards to our 3 current active landfills. Our 3 current active landfills service over 3 million residents in 34 cities and 14 unincorporated areas, covering a little over 900 square miles. OCWR owns and operates 3 major Class 3 landfills and 4 household hazardous waste centers. Our landfills include Prima de Checa, located in the city of San Juan Capistrano, Frank R. Bowerman, located in the city of Irvine, and Olinda Alpha, located in the city of Brea. Our Orange County landfills account for 14% of total refuse buried statewide, which in 2020, OCWR buried over 5 million tons of waste. In addition to our landfills managing waste, we've also led our operations to become a resource recovery facilities. We've implemented multiple recycling initiatives, such as our mattress recycling program, in which OCWR is currently recycling over 2,000 mattresses monthly. 1 mattress equals 23 cubic feet of airspace, totaling over 46,000 cubic feet of airspace safe monthly, helping prolong the life of our landfills. We've partnered with Mattress Recycling Council, which created a program called Bye Bye Mattresses, which they go ahead and pick up our mattresses, take them to their facilities to be refurbished and recycled, pulling out the metals and at sometimes the wood that these mattresses contain. In addition to our mattress recycling program, we also have a metal recycling program. Our metal recycling program has led to recovering over 150 tons of metal per month. This is material that would typically get buried and not recycled as properly managed. Some of these items include refrigerators, washer and dryers, barbecue, heat lamps, and various other types of scrap metal. OCWR's goal is also to compost over 1,000 tons per day amongst the 3 landfills of green waste and composting materials. OCWR currently operates windrow operations at 2 of our 3 landfills, Frank R. Bowerman and Prima de Checa. Olinda Alpha is in the process of piloting a covered aerated stockpile cache system. Our goal in our model has become from transitioning to just landfilling our waste to a resource recovery facility. By doing so, we're looking at ways to establish and implement new technologies, best management practices, collaborating with haulers to promote recycling, and establishing new partnerships with end users. In addition to that, we've also found ways through our current recycling initiatives to generate reusable energy, and in this case, create waste to energy, a cycle that starts at home and through the process leads into helping our landfills generate electricity that have powered over tens of thousands of homes. We continue to do this with our partnerships with our power plants, and here in particular in the city of Brea with our power generating company called EDL. We also have 4 household hazardous waste centers, which we manage and operate. These household hazardous waste centers are located in the city of Anaheim, Huntington Beach, Irvine, and San Juan Capistrano. To touch a little about what items they accept at these centers, as this is extremely helpful for residents, which at times do not understand or know where they could take these items. These are the locations that accept these materials outside of just typical solid waste that is normally sent to the landfills. At these household hazardous waste centers, they accept electronic waste such as monitors, keypads, and computers. In addition, with light bulbs, batteries, paint thinners, and any household chemicals typically used for cleaning practices. Some items that the hazardous waste household centers do not accept are tires, ammunitions, and any types of cylinders containing any gases. Here's just an illustration of our County of Orange map showing where our landfills are located, as well as where our household hazardous waste centers are located. And as I mentioned, we have 3 current active landfills in which the county operates, and 4 household hazardous waste centers in which the county operates and manages as well. All right, let's get into why we do what we do when it comes to recycling. As some of us might know, there was multiple Senate bills and Assembly bills that have passed going back to the early 1990s. We have AB 939, AB 341, AB 1826, AB 1594, and our most recent and one that's getting extreme attention is SB 1383. Just for the purpose of time, as we could go on for hours, talking about these Senate bills and Assembly bills, I've cut it down to trying to provide information on 2 of the most common, and one, as I mentioned, SB 1383, which is the most popular at this moment. So what is SB 1383? SB 1383 was established to help meet necessary short-lived climate pollutant reduction mandates. To meet those mandates, SB 1383 required CalRecycle in consultation with the California Air Resource Board to develop regulations to reduce the disposal of organic waste 50% below 2014 levels by 2020 and 75% by 2025. In addition, recognizing the significant levels of food insecurity in the state, the legislature further required that CalRecycle include requirements to increase food recovery by 20% by 2025. Organic waste, as defined by SB 1383, includes materials primarily comprised of carbon, such as food scraps, food soil paper, paper products, green material, landscape and pruning waste, organic textiles, and carpets and wood waste. SB 1383 was also driven due to the fact that organic waste in landfills accounts for 20% of the methane generated in California. Methane is a powerful greenhouse gas, 72 to 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide, with a short-term atmospheric life, but a long-term impact on the climate. Organic waste is the largest waste stream in California. As you see in this diagram, it's broken down by several commodities such as green waste, wood waste, food waste, and papers. California disposes of approximately 24 million tons of organic waste, disposed of 24 million tons of organic waste in 2018. And as you see below on the note to the bottom left, California throws away more than 6 million tons of food waste every year. Quite a considerable number considering the food insecurities that we also face. Here are key implementation dates since SB 1383 started. To bring you up to date and most current, upcoming January 1st, 2020, regulations will take effect and state enforcements will begin. Starting in January 1st, 2024, regulations will require local governments to take enforcement. And by January 1st, 2025, there will be a mandate of 75% reduction in organics disposal and an increase of 20% in edible food recovery. A huge part of why our county and our 3 landfills have embraced the composting recycling to help with all the cities within our jurisdictions comply with these mandates. AB 939. This assembly bill mandates a reduction of waste being disposed. Jurisdictions will be required to meet diversion goals of 25%, which dated back to 1995, and 50% by the year 2000. I think the ultimate goal is to continue to increase the amount of waste disposed to increase a higher diversion to where it can end up being somewhere around 75% plus in the near future. This obviously entailed a lot of private hauler waste and recycling companies to install the use of sort systems, build MRFs, and also other processing facilities. So we'll ask the question, why recycle? For one, it gives us an opportunity that our waste gets repurposed for reuse. This allows us to reduce the consumption of raw materials that lead to preventing air and water pollution. On top of that, this helps reduce the amount of trash that goes into the landfills, helping expand the life of our landfills. In addition, and what is most important, it helps protect the environment for generations to come. What is the recycling process? And as most commonly used in the waste and recycling industry, when it comes to processing material from start to finish, as we identify it in the terms of cradle to grave. Initially, our first step always starts at home. And this is, starting with properly managing our recyclables and also how we handle them. Something that has become of great use has been, homeowners, residents starting to rinse their containers to help reduce the amount of contamination. Also properly separating their items and placing it in the appropriate carts when picked up. Our haulers, they've used they've actually implemented the use of automated vehicles to allow for the process of this 3-cart system. As we all know, dating back to maybe about 10 years to some companies, but 10 to 20 years prior, a lot of our items were picked up all mixed together and done manually. Either they were placed in one cart or put out in trash bags. Today, there's multiple systems and ways of collecting this that help separate the materials. Most common is our 3-cart system that our local haulers use. And also the technology has helped us advance in ways that have made it a lot easier and safer to collect of our waste and recyclables. One step after our waste and recyclables are picked up, it goes into our material recovery facilities. These facilities use innovative technologies such as robotics, infrared, and pneumatic technologies that have led to an increase of materials, helping these facilities recycle more tons per hour, allowing them to stay up to the increase in tonnages that they receive on a daily basis. In addition to that, we also move on to our processing materials that come out of these recyclables that are processed at our MRFs. These, in return, can end up being moved and recycled either loose or in baled commodities. Most of these materials are either sold to local importers or exported out of the country and sold overseas. One of our major buyers, we could say, is China in regards to all the fibers that are moved to this country. And what becomes of these recyclable materials after they've been processed, properly baled, or either moved loosely? It ends up obviously coming into our final stage, which is these materials and these products are created into new products or reusable products. For example, cardboard typically is processed in mills and turned into new cardboard boxes, amongst other packaging items. The metal is melted into new parts and tools. Plastics are created into new bottles or containers, and the aluminum are created into new cans and new tin products as well. Our composting becomes mulch and feedstock for farmers as well. And wood gets typically ground and chipped and also sold loose or made into new wood pallets as well. A high demand for these items. So as we touched earlier on our 3-cart system, something for the residents to know is what goes in these containers, or in these carts, I should say. There's always the confusion of some residents thinking certain items are either trash or that some items are recyclable. Just to give you a brief description as to what should go in each can, we've put the 3 different carts, which are landfill, meaning trash. Recycle is what's recyclable and typically gets transferred to a material recycling facility to get processed and sorted in order to separate the different recycling commodities. And compost, our green waste can as we know it. Let's begin with a landfilling. This is typical, day-to-day household trash, which includes rubber gloves, styrofoam, plastic bags, and broken glass. Now, plastic bags have been at times interpreted as being recyclable items. They could become recyclable if you're taking them to certain locations. Mostly common known, there is local grocery stores that will actually take your grocery bags and recycle them based on collaborations and partnerships they've built with smaller or larger recycling companies that actually process this material. Also, broken glass. I've been asked various questions. And this question always comes up to mind when they say, well, what about if there's broken glass, and what type of broken glass is recycled? For the most part, what we call our California redemption materials, which typically include plastic, aluminum, and glass. Glass is recyclable, but it has to be in its entirety. It has to be the whole bottle or the container. Once it's broken into pieces, it can no longer be sorted, as there's no equipment to sort this material when it's broken. Now, recyclable items also include paper, cardboard, aluminum, plastic containers, cups, and bottles. And one item, or a couple items that also been misinterpreted as recyclable items, have been cables, cords, items of this nature. Those are definitely not recyclable. Certain cables, for example, come in with copper, which copper is recyclable, but unfortunately that needs to be sort of separated and taken differently, not into these containers that are more in line to recycle California redemption value items, amongst other things. But cables, what these do is they create operational issues for our material recovery facilities, which tangle up the conveyors and the screens, causing damage to the equipment, which also, in addition to these items, that's what plastic bags do as well. They create jams that often lead to breakdowns and stoppages, which affect the productivity and efficiency of material recovery facilities. Our green waste can, you could put in food scraps in there, newspaper, and also garden and lawn clippings. These are items that are these cards are used for these items, and could also be used for bigger tree branches and things of that nature. So I wanted to show what a typical MRF looks like. MRF going back to a material recovery facility. As you see in this illustration, this is a MRF with quite a bit of components, and these facilities and these operations and systems could range from a couple $100,000 to tens of millions of dollars. As you see this one is fully equipped to be able to process almost everything that comes in a recycling cart that can be recyclable. They have multiple conveyor belts, in addition to screens, eddy currents, and also multiple magnets that will help sort separate any tin or metal items that come along within the recycling materials hauled to these MRFs. Here's another illustration of another MRF. This is kind of showing you a closer overview as to a couple of the conveyors moving multiple materials. Typically, you will see OCC screens in these types of operations and systems. You will see also eddy currents, like I mentioned, magnets to sort out the operations, or to sort out the metal, I'm sorry, and also various infrared systems that will help sort separate the aluminums, the plastic, and even the different types of mixed papers. Here's two quick illustrations of what a conveyor belt looks like, and this is what we would call, a typical conveyor belt leading to either one of many functionalities, like I mentioned earlier, either used to sort separate plastic, aluminum, papers, or cardboard, for example. And then to your right, you'll see the eddy current, which typically is used for the same reasons. These eddy currents, along with air propelled jets, will also help separate the different types of fibers at a much higher rate than manually picking through them as they just come through a conveyor. And I'll touch a little bit about that in the next upcoming slides. And here we go. This is the next slide. Technology has taken a huge step into improving as to how we recycle, the quality of recycling, and also what's most important, the efficiency and the increase in productivity of recycling based on the utilization of robotics. Here are two great pictures that illustrate a type of robotics used at some of our MRFs. And for example, when you look at how much recyclables can be pulled manually, in this case, using a human being, it's found that a robot or these types of robotic systems could actually sort anywhere 3 to 4 times more material than a person doing this manually. So that's a huge increase in regards to how much tonnage can be recycled per hour. A lot of our industries, a lot of our material recovery facilities, they bank on this as a form of financial benefit to be able to sort as much as they can per hour. So one of the biggest ways to measure this is how much material could be recycled on a per ton basis. But when you compare it, they do main comparisons as to tons per hour. So you'll hear that often mentioned when you talk about recycling at material recovery facilities. Based on efficiency is how many tons per hour can they recycle. And obviously, the more, the better. So after these materials are recycled, after they're separated, what becomes of them? Well, here you have it. For example, to your left, you have bales of cardboard. Up to the right-hand side, you'll see bales of plastic, typically bales that will consist the PET grade, which is also California Redemption. And to the bottom of that, you see aluminum cans, which are the most common commodities when it comes to materials being sorted at the material recovery facilities. And typically, this is how they also are transported, whether they're sold locally or sold out of state or out of the country. How these bales are moved, normally they're used, they're shipped in containers, especially if they're going overseas. These are a lot of the containers that are typically used. Most common ports that are used to transport this out of seas, you have Long Beach Port and also the Los Angeles Port. And these are the typical containers used to ship these materials, along with flatbeds if they're going to be shipped locally. And that will include any of the commodities that were listed on the previous slide. And if a container is shipped out of seas, they're normally loaded in vessels like you see below. These vessels could hold up to thousands of these containers. Typically, they're 40-foot containers holding anywhere from 10 to 20 tons per container, depending on the material. And this is what becomes of those recyclable products once they hit the end user. Cardboard paper mills, like I mentioned, will create new boxes. Any recyclable plastics will, especially PET plastics, will create new bottled plastic bottles, and the aluminum will also lead to new aluminum cans. So everything is recycled, refurbished, and used to create new products. So, in addition to everything we've touched on so far, a lot of it is the process and things of this nature. And we know that, a few years back, we kind of came across certain challenging times where specifically in China, they stopped accepting a lot of our materials due to contamination. And I'd just like to touch briefly on some of those items and what that consisted of. For example, during these times, closures of the Chinese borders we're putting pressure on our domestic markets, not allowing us to move as much material, or at times, if any, based on a lot of what was recovered and recycled at these MRFs. A lot of it had to do to the recycling contamination levels that increased within our recycling carts, and the amount of material that was shipped that exceeded contamination levels. Also, the implementation of China Green Fence and China National Sword initiatives that led to strict contamination limits as low as 0.5% on recyclable materials, most common on fibers, aluminum, and plastics, resulting in higher processing costs for MRFs and also lower rebates. I could say, based on my waste and recycling experience, about 20 years ago, when I used to operate and manage these post-collection facilities, I could sell cardboard for up to over 200 tons or $200 a ton. Just not too long ago, going back to a little over a year or so ago, you couldn't get rid of cardboard for any more than $5 to $10 a ton. And when it came to other fibers, for example, mixed paper, where I could sell it for about $45, $50 a ton, there was companies that actually had to pay to get rid of it, which a lot of this material ended at our local MRFs. I'm sorry, at our local landfills. So it was costing actually money, not only to process the material, but it was also costing money because of the having to pay to dispose of this material. So there was quite, considerable changes that had huge financial impacts to a lot of these material recovery facilities and these companies that own them. Currently, China has placed serious restrictions on plastic, claiming most of the plastic is garbage and too dirty to recycle. And again, the restrictions are clearly noted when their limits entail to have no more than 0.5% of these of contamination in the material shipped. And of course, as I mentioned just a bit ago, the fluctuation in market pricing also led to some challenges in regards to recycling. So here are some recycling myths and misconceptions that I'd like to help clear. For one, does sorting my trash really help? I think we all know the answer to that. It most definitely does. It helps, with a lot of things that I mentioned already, such as keeping our environment clean, helping reduce the amount of pollutants into the air in our water systems. In addition to that, it helps expand the life of our landfills, which is good as well. Next one is, can I still recycle crumpled or crushed bottles and cans? Absolutely. The only thing we cannot recycle that ends up becoming trash is broken glass bottles. As I mentioned earlier, we cannot, and there is not many or any systems that can actually recycle broken glass. Bottles as a whole can be recycled, as well as any crumbled or crushed plastic bottles and cans, or in aluminum cans, as well as tin cans. My bottle only gets recycled once, right? No, actually, aluminum, plastics, metals, papers, fibers, they all could be recycled multiple times, not just once. This is a good one here, and most often asked, can greasy pizza boxes be recycled? No, unfortunately they cannot, as some of the oils that these pizza boxes have don't allow for the appropriate composition of the material once ran through the mills. So it actually is not recommended that greasy, cheesy pizza boxes or any other type of containers that contain food be placed in the recycle bin. It's recommended that these items be placed in your trash cart. Should we rinse our food containers before placing them in the recycling cart? Absolutely. The more we do pre-hand, the easier and the better it makes it to manage at our material recovery facilities. This helps with the decrease in contamination and also odors. As we all know, a lot of these jars that have the leftover mayonnaise or mustard, ketchup, or things like that, they tend to create, high, strong odors, which also can affect MRFs as well when it comes to their compliance. So if we can rinse them at home, that'd be great. How do we get rid of our unwanted electronics? For one, I mentioned the 4 local household hazardous waste centers we have. You could bring these items to our household hazardous waste centers. Our landfills do not take them. And definitely these items should not be placed either in the trash cart or in the recycling cart. You could always check with your local haulers. They could provide you with additional information on locations where you could take these items. I know a lot of local haulers will also have multiple events throughout the year, such as electronic waste drop-off collections, where you could take your items to them instead of having to take them to other locations. But they will provide the information in regards to the multiple events that they host throughout the year that allow residents to take these items along with household hazardous waste as well. That actually concludes our presentation. A little over what I expected, but we do have, a few minutes, which I thought was important to have, as there could be several questions that you folks might have. We'll do our best to try to answer them. If there's a question that we don't have an answer to you at this moment, we will more than happy get back to you and provide you with a more detailed answer to your questions. So with that said, Simone, is there any questions?
Yes, thank you, George, for that presentation. One question, let's see, it says, why can newspapers not be recycled when they go into the compost? And I think that's a good question because I was confused myself. One said that and it looks like in recycle, you can put paper, and in the green bin, you can put newspaper. Why is that?
Well, newspaper actually could be placed in both, depending on the cities and depending on the local haulers. There is various types of papers that are recycled. For example, when we say mixed paper, that includes newspaper, that includes white ledger paper, colored paper. Believe it or not, there's 6, 7 different types of paper that are recycled. Magazines, for example. So newspapers can be placed in the recycling cart.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question is, where do all the plastic bottles come from that contribute to the floating plastics in the ocean?
Oh, well, obviously, plastics that end up in the ocean, those are just, unfortunately, folks that are, either haven't been educated in regards to the impacts of these items, being disposed, in, beaches, most typical, typically public beaches that, obviously end up in the oceans. But, it's quick answer to that would be, it's just the folks that are not being cautious and understanding as to the impacts of discarding these materials in improper locations. For example, them not using, the recycling programs that we have, for one, and also, to some extent, the lack of consideration that they have to the environment and keeping it clean.
Thank you for that answer. Another question is, some cities and some HOAs only have the trash and recycle bins. We don't have a green compost. I know you're more with the county, but what's your recommendation about how we can, what do we do in a situation like that? And does that tie back to SB 13? I think it was at 68. I was kind of questioning myself. I have questions around that too. I know there was dates of the January 2022, and then another one for 2025, I believe. But what is it that we need to do with that? Is that streamlining the process of how we do things, and is it more related to just composting? And what if we don't have a green bin to compost?
Yeah, if you don't have a green, and this is mostly, in areas such as multifamily areas, what you could do is, at least from what I've seen and have already given certain information to, a lot of these local haulers have come up with different and smaller containers to be able to recycle, for example, food waste and scraps of sort. I know, some of the major haulers that operate within our county have implemented these programs that would be able to, they would be able to provide a little more information and details in regard to how to go about getting these containers. Green waste as well. There's also carts that they've provided to communities such as multifamily locations, but definitely would reach out to your local hauler and have them provide you with a lot more of the logistics behind that. Also, the containers that are available to be able to recycle the additional items outside of recycle and just trash. And, for the most part, when you look at these haulers, they have a great educational and outreach program and coordinators that will actually go to your communities and be able to not only, provide you with the cards and items needed, but also provide additional presentations like I'm doing today that entail a lot more detail specific to those areas.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Since our association is, from Huntington Beach all the way to South County, it was more challenging to get, regionally specific haulers to come and do a presentation. But I hope that this high level overview helps you guys and inspires you to maybe contact the local haulers to get more information. One other question is, can mail envelopes with plastic windows go into the paper recycling, or do the windows need to be removed? It's a great question.
No, they could go in, for the amount of, envelopes, let's say, that are actually disposed of, that then get blended in with the rest of the mixed paper, as I mentioned. It really does not create a contamination issue when it comes to creating these huge fiber bales that we saw on some of the previous slides. So, no.
Great, thank you. And so is China still purchasing? I understand they've tightened their measures quite a bit. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we're not selling as much to China? And are there local businesses that process recycling that are kind of alleviating that problem and providing a solution?
Where there's definitely limitations to how much is being sold now compared to, a few years back. And a lot of it has to do with just ensuring that, all these processing centers are meeting the contamination requirements. And believe me when I say, to ship material at 0.5%, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of labor hours to get to, to meet these, high demand contamination numbers, such as what we talked about being the 0.5%. And a lot of it has to do with, how well your material is processed, which then in return will dictate how much material you could move. They haven't put much restrictions as to how much tonnage any one location or how much we could move, within the United States, but it does have huge implications in regards to the contamination that can actually be accepted through the different mandates that China has imposed on the United States when it comes to contamination factors.
Thank you for that answer, George. I am seeing some comments, but not questions unless I'm missing them. Is there any more? Are there any questions that I have not picked up to address? Please go ahead and put them in the chat. Thank you for those who are sharing their knowledge of local area solutions, like Irvine has a recycling. They come to your door and pick up your recycle items. It's been it started June 1st, and it's been a hit, in my opinion, because I'm hearing a lot of people talk about it. If there are no further questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. And George's information is here. And thank you so much for your time and effort and speaking to our group here, our members at Orange County Realtors.
I do see questions in the Q&A. I can go ahead and read them off.
Oh, would you please? Thank you.
To answer. Yeah. So the first one is, I'm so sorry for the background noise. Is there anticipation we adopt similar practices to Seattle, where they have a compost ordinance? They require a separate bin for compostable items. What can we suggest / do in the meantime to help improve?
I'm sorry, it sounded, let me turn up the volume here. Could you repeat that one more time, please?
Yes, so is there anticipation we adopt similar practices to Seattle, where they have a compost ordinance? They require a separate bin for compostable items. What can we suggest / do in the meantime to help improve?
Right now, for the moment, what we can do, and it's, similar to us here in California, and that's, establishing food resource and recovery program, which has kind of led to the use of multiple containers. I'm not sure exactly the extent of where Seattle's at with, the recycling capabilities of managing food waste and, scrap items within any of their carts. If they do have, green waste cart, they can also, place scrap food items such as the ones I mentioned earlier. But, it really matters in regards to the different containers they have. Like I mentioned earlier, here within, the County of Orange, our local haulers have already started the use of distributing the different containers for these scrap items and composting that I talked about earlier.
Okay, thank you. And the next one is, where can wood be disposed of?
Well, wood is normally placed, depending on the amount, that could be placed in your green waste cart. When you talk about, disposing it for recycling, there are some alternatives, such as certain wood waste plants that will actually take on clean wood waste. One that I'm most familiar with are your local transfer stations, which are, there's multiple transfer stations here in the County of Orange. I know there's one in Irvine called Sunset Environmental, as well as another one in Anaheim, which is CVT, in addition to one in Stanton, CRT, as well as one in the city of Santa Ana called Madison Materials. A lot of these transfer stations, if you take this wood clean, they'll go ahead and recycle it at their transfer stations. The only type of wood they don't take is treated wood.
Okay, thank you. The next one, what do you suggest if we see pickups combining recycle and waste bins in the same truck in the community?
The last part of that, what was that? I'm sorry.
What do you suggest if we see pickups combining recycle and waste bins in the same truck in the community?
That I would definitely have the resident reach out to that local hauler, reach out to their operations team so that they could get, a better understanding as to if that's happening, if there's a reason why, or just have management itself be able to look into situations like that.
Can we recycle used paper cups and papers?
No, on the recycled cups, paper, as long as it's any type of fiber, like I mentioned, either white ledger, newspaper, colored paper, that could all be recyclable.
And the new pilot program in Irvine, which is offering to pick up recyclables door service and send the money value. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that was somebody answering.
Okay.
Let's see. Have seen numerous times both regular trash and recycled trash cans were picked up at the same time by the same truck. Is recycling really happening?
Yeah, and I think that was similar to the previous question. If anything like that is happening, and once again going back to the local haulers that are operating within those cities, I would highly recommend that they contact their local hauler and ask to speak to someone in operations, which would provide them with the clear and precise answer to those concerns.
Okay, and then is there anywhere to do commercial composting, like compostable silverware?
So is there anyone that does commercial composting?
Yes.
Yeah, we've actually begun here within our county landfills, the operations of composting at two of our local landfills, one in the city of Irvine, Frank R. Bowerman, and also Prima de Checa in the city of San Juan Capistrano.
Okay, thank you, George. And that looks like those are all the questions we have.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
And by the way, those were all great questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I think that concludes our webinar with 2 minutes to spare. You guys got 2 minutes back in your lives. Thank you so much for being here. If you anyone has any questions, I'm always available, and we can see how we can move the needle forward with recycling and pass the message on to the communities that we serve.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Simone. Great,
Thank you,
great work. Appreciate it.